Hmm. Can you do more 3D printed terrain? Got a couple around here somewhere. Sure, why not? So let me just put some things out there so you guys kind of get a good idea of what is going on. Now the piece of terrain you're seeing in front of you was provided by my friend MushroomGuy. He's a wonderful friend of the channel, and he's provided me with a lot of fun things to kind of play around with and really help to encourage me to get my own 3D printer, and as well encouraged me to do this YouTube channel. As we can see here, this figure is a little bit too big for this model, and obviously Warhammer is way too big. So what's that mean? Well, the D&D miniatures are usually about 25mm to 35mm, so this is probably a little too small for traditional D&D. However, in my mind, this could also be used for forced perspective. So what do I mean by forced perspective? Well, if we consider this to be a piece of terrain for D&D, we could use this for dwarven terrain or gnomon terrain, and that's what we're going to do. Now, since I'll more than likely be using this for wargaming, and a lot of wargaming you never end up using the first floor of a piece of terrain, so I want a nice flat top so that I can put models on top of it, and I don't really care about what goes underneath. Now, if you care about being able to have a playable interior, you could easily magnetize the cross beams that I've put in here. You would just simply cut holes where you want to put your cross beams, mount a magnet into the cross beam, and then mount the magnet into the plastic itself. You're just cutting lots of holes that way, and it's a little bit more work than what's really needed. So, as you saw there, it's just coffee stir sticks and some toothpicks as some reinforcements, and we're just gluing that all together. So we have a few options here. You can either glue this top piece on now and then paint the whole thing, or we can paint it and then glue this on. I'm opting for the latter, but if you want to do the former, what you can do is you can take a Sharpie and you can mark out where this is going to end up, and that's going to let you know where to put glue and where not to put glue, and that way you can make sure that you don't just make a mess out of the super glue like you'll see I did later. So skip forward a little bit here. I just painted everything black with black spray paint. I put a little bit of texture paint in at the bottom to simulate dirt, and now I'm just doing a heavy overbrush. This is kind of similar to a dry brush, but you're not really wiping off any of the paint. You're just kind of mushing it into the bristles and then immediately applying it onto the brickwork. And as you can see, it leaves a lot of the black behind, really helps to show the age, lets the grout lines really pop, and it's really great for just quick and easy terrain. Don't forget to get the inside of the doorways as well as the inside of any of the window sills, as it'll be a little bit more of a pain to kind of clean that up later on. Once we paint the dirt on the inside with some brown, we can take a very light dry brush of brown and just kind of apply it all over. This is going to give some good variation to the stonework without having to put tons of work in. If you want to go in and pick out individual bricks and change their color slightly, that's fine. I would recommend doing that with a wash, but this is just a really easy, simple way to slap some color on. You may decide you want to do 2 or 3 coats to really darken up the brown, but I felt this was good enough, especially with the wash I was going to be putting on later. So all the wood, including the floor for the second floor, is going to be getting painted the exact same. I'm using 2 different shades of craft paint, one darker, one more on the red spectrum, and then I'll be using khaki. First we want to go in with the darker colors, then we want to go in with the lighter colors, and then we want to mix the khaki into the 2 colors to get 2 different kinds of highlights, and then we're going to paint those highlights using dry brushes. So here you can see those 2 different shades of brown have done a really great job at bringing out the wood tones. Again, that's just dry brushes of those 2 different shades of brown. And then we're coming in with some of our khaki, and we're going a little bit ham-fisted with our dry brushing, both in the grain of the wood and opposite the grain of the wood. If you really want to make the wood grain pop more, be a bit more cartoonish, blend in a bit more with your plastic terrain, you can actually take a wire brush to those coffee stir sticks, go in the direction of the wood grain, and it'll really make it pop. It'll really bring out that wood grain, and it'll help you to kind of blend things in with your plastic terrain a bit more. Now if you've been a bit ham-fisted with your super glue application, that's fine. We can cover it up with a little bit of texture paint, the same as you've seen me here do. Just put a little bit of dirt splotches in. Try to keep it nice and flat and level. That way if you want to put crates or barrels or anything else up there to use as cover in your fantasy games later on, you can, and it's not getting in the way. Now because I want this to look quite run down, you can see I've actually put that dirt in on all the windowsills, and I probably should put a little bit more around the edges. I end up not doing that. I'm gonna keep playing with it for a little while and see if I really like the way it looks now, or if I think it should add some more dirt. I ended up being happy with it at the end of the video, but you should keep that in mind when working on a project like this. We're going to be applying a brown wash all over. I'll be using Agrex Earth Shade because my Agrex Earth Shade is starting to expire and I want to use it up before it actually expires. If you don't know how to make a brown wash, you can just mix some dark brown paint, like acrylic paint, with water, or you can even mix it with acrylic thinner if you want to, but honestly water works just fine. And we want to just kind of go all over the bottom here where the dirt would be splashing up onto the building, and maybe even draw some streak lines coming down from either the windowsills or some of those little overhangs. Get them into the nooks and crannies in a few places, just really help to break up the shape of just all the brick so it's not all the same color. Here's one of my favorite stages of weathering, and that's when we start adding all the grass and everything like that in to really set the scene. Now I want this to make it look like it's been abandoned for a long time. It's been through many seasons, lots of dead bushes in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to goop a ton of PVA glue that's just regular craft school glue, and then we're going to mush it around with an old brush. And then we're going to take some of the stuff, it's kind of known as liching, latching, all kinds of weird versions of that pronunciation depending on what country you're from. It's also known as reindeer moss in some places. You can get it in all different kinds of colors. This is just a non-tinted color, it's just a grayish white color. I really like using it for dead bushes, and we're just going to be mushing tons of this stuff in underneath the stairs along that back wall. There's actually a few different companies that make stuff like this. This is just labeled Dry Vines. I got mine from Hobby Lobby. It's the only hobby store in my area at the moment, so it was the best I could get with the time frame I've got, but it's just a great product. It works really well for what it is. You want to kind of treat this stuff like the fake spider webs that you get around Halloween, where once you rip off a bunch, you kind of spread it out and get it to cover as much surface area as you can. Now a lot of these fake leaves are going to come off. That's fine. We can scoop that up and reapply it later with some glue. So I gave all that a little bit of time to dry, and then I've covered everything in rubbing alcohol. That kind of helps to break down the surface tension of anything we're going to add to it. In this case, it's more PVA glue, and I'm just applying a little bit into the corner there to help hold all of this fake vine stuff down and just make sure that it all kind of sets into a semi-solid piece, and then I'm adding back in all that debris that kind of came off, and it just kind of helps to fill out the bush. As you can see here, it looks really great, and when it's all together, it just works. And honestly, that's it, guys. This was a super fun, super easy 3D print build. You can get 3D prints like this all over the place on Etsy, as well as for free if you have a 3D printer. They're all over Thingiverse. They're super cheap. If you don't have a 3D printer on Etsy, you can find stuff like this as cheap as a couple of bucks. It's really nice. People tend to sell this stuff really cheaply because it just looks really bad in its raw form, but as you can see, once you slap some paint on it and do like an afternoon's worth of work, it really looks nice. It's really wonderful. It works great as a wonderful play piece, and as you can see, the dwarf looks great right at home, proper scale for this sort of thing, and if you were to throw some other characters in here, it would look just as good. So I'm really excited for how it turned out. I really love it. I think it's going to be great with my fantasy stuff, and I think it's going to be great for D&D. Hopefully you guys learned at least a little bit of something, and hopefully you guys enjoyed watching. I know this week's video was really quick and kind of short, but we haven't had a video like that in a while, so I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, I hope your display case is always overfilled, and your pile of shame will never run empty. Thank you guys so much for watching and for all the love and support. You've been amazing. And thank you so much for getting us well past 300 subscribers. I'm so excited and I'm so grateful. Until next time. So next you're going to want to take your overbrush, Red Rover, Red Grover, send the gray paint over. It is too late for this. Focus. So next we want to take the overbrush. Okay. Bloopers aside, just want to remind everybody that at the end of the month we are going to go ahead and draw to see who wins this little diorama. If this goes well, I definitely want to do more things like this in the future, although I'll have to be a bit more conscious about how heavy I make things. This is actually pretty heavy. It'll be a bit expensive to ship. But I would love to do a major giveaway where I do a diorama and give that away every time we hit a major milestone. And if you guys think that's really awesome, go ahead and check out my video on this so you can figure out how to enter this giveaway. And just thank you so much for all the love and support. I never thought we would hit 300 subscribers. That's so mind-blowing. Thank you.